Kirill Kaprizov called game against the San Jose Sharks with a hat trick. But if you watched the game, and that was the first time you'd watched the Wild all season, you get a pretty full picture as to what has happened all year to the Minnesota Wild. We'll recap the game, as well as previewing a busy week ahead with the trade deadline on Friday, all on today's episode of Locked on Wild, and hopefully this is not the last time I get to use this intro.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Brandon Duhaime, and this is Locked on Wild.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, as always, for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms, and make sure you join us on YouTube for our live streams, as well as postcasts breaking down all of the action for the Wild. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On today's episode, we'll recap the 4-3 win for the Wild over the San Jose Sharks. We'll tee things up for the trade deadline coming up on Friday and what is probably going to be a tough week for the close-knit Minnesota Wild. My name is Seth Topal, credentialed Wild media member, joined by Alex Micheletti here for a Victory Micheletti Monday. Although, Alex, if you were time capsuling a game to have somebody 100 years in the future open it up and you needed to pick one that perfectly encapsulated what has happened to this team all season, perfect.
You had it all. Yeah, you had it all.
Perfect. Like, it just, the theme for this season will be way harder than anything ever needed to be, because it's a San Jose Sharks team that was also playing on a back-to-back, that had lost 6 games in a row, that had the second fewest points in the entirety of the NHL. And the Wild squeak by with a 4-3 win thanks to a hat trick from Kirill Kaprizov. But they trailed 2-0. They trailed 3-2.
Yeah, it was crazy. Thank goodness for 97. If he didn't have 97, it would have probably been a loss. So, I mean, he willed that team to a victory. That was just a vintage Kirill Kaprizov game. And yeah, like he alluded to, San Jose was flew in from Dallas. They not only was it they went to overtime and a shootout. So they looked tired. After that first period, I was like, oh boy, we're in for a 0-0 going to a shootout. But it kind of opened up there in the second period. And yeah, it's just like, is every former Wild player going to score in this game? Like, seriously, we're going to get a goalie goal too. But of course, like you said, they made it harder than they really needed to, but they were making Capo look like a Vezina goalie, which he clearly isn't. Especially that sequence where they the power play expired and they had it in the zone for over a minute and a half. That was crazy, and Capo couldn't freeze the puck. It was bringing back old bad memories of him in a Wild uniform. But what a weird, crazy game.
Just bizarre. And you fall behind 2-0 on a power play goal from Mikael Granlund and a shorthanded goal from Nico Sturm. Then you give up a goal to Anthony Duclair to start the third
looking to
period.
Get traded.
Yeah. Like, it's just all of these elements, like falling behind, not being able to take advantage of a beatable goalie early on. Like, we looked at Capo's numbers in the live show on Sunday before the game. Not great.
Hideous.
And so you like offensively are not able to capitalize on those types of instances. Filip Gustavsson gives up a couple of leaky goals. Power play gives up a shorthanded goal and struggles for the most part to be able to gain the zone. All these things have been here all season, and it was just a weird game from a lineup perspective too, because you have Matt Zuccarello, who is out for personal reasons, and thankfully it
I'm glad
was
he's okay.
confirmed after the game that everything is okay. It's just something that that Zuccarello had to deal with. He was with the team in meetings during the day, just had to go attend to a personal matter, so he was not available. And so the Wild had Dakota Mermis ready to go with an 11-7 lineup. He played 2 minutes.
Why
So
even have him in the why even have him dress?
You're basically willingly putting yourself down by a player. You're putting yourself at a willing disadvantage by not throwing him in, and then you just like
When you have Adam Beckman, who's leading the Iowa Wild in goals right there, they could have got him right up, but yeah.
So it's just it perfectly encapsulates how this entire season has gone. And despite the kind of general sense from the broadcast last night that this got you back into the conversation, you're 8 points out with 20 games to play. The focus needs to now be, and I think the team could sense this after the game against the Blues, that was kind of it. That was the last straw. And this team is going to sell at the deadline, because if Calgary is going to sell, if St. Louis is entertaining offers on Buchnevich, why are you still going for it?
Yeah. It makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, all these other teams know what they're, they know that it's not worth it for them to, to keep continuing the fight. They've called off the Dogs, even though they they win, random game here or there. But yeah, teams are ready to call off the Dogs because they see Nashville with all the momentum, and the Kings too. Kings are losing guys left and right out of their lineup, but they, the coaching change for them seems to have done wonders for that team. So good luck trying to chase those two.
Well, and like the Los Angeles Kings have maybe been out of a playoff spot for 2 days this entire season. They've been in it the whole time. And all of these benchmarks, what is the old adage about being in the postseason by Thanksgiving? And a large percentage of the teams that are in those spots by Thanksgiving are still in those spots.
Yeah, you don't have to be. You're not chasing down teams. You're being the one being chased down, and you're in a way better spot because you've banked up points too earlier in the season, so that helps you out so much, especially the in division games too, which the Wild continue to not do. And I mean, Binnington, the night before, well, I mean, he's had a really tough season. I mean, teams have, like as we know with Jordan Binnington, if you get one in, it can turn into an avalanche of goals, and they struggled to get it by Binnington. And, that's a St. Louis team that's extremely flawed defensively, and to not get more than one goal, that was really disappointing.
And I found myself chuckling because, some of the other things that we heard too is, hey, the top line got back on track. You're playing the San Jose Sharks.
Right. I would hope. I mean, it's a team that is in, tank mode for this, back-to-back seasons, which really stinks for a really proud franchise. I mean, if you think, not even, not less than 10 years, they were almost going to a Stanley Cup, or, just like they had just amazing teams, and they decided to not re-sign Joe Pavelski, and that kind of was just the downfall from there. They decided to keep Evander Kane, and that was a complete fail.
Yikes.
And from there, yeah, it's just been tank.
They have given up the most goals in the NHL. And so, not to take anything away from Kirill Kaprizov's performance,
No,
the performance of that
amazing.
top line,
yeah.
It's the Sharks.
Right.
Like, this is...
Where was this, against Nashville? Where was this against St. Louis?
Yeah. Respectfully, I can't look at what happened in this game against the Sharks and be like, everything's back on. Like,
right.
because what happens if you go to overtime? What happens if you don't get that go-ahead goal? You go to overtime against this Sharks team?
Points you're missing out on, yeah. See, Dallas, people would be more upset at Dallas for what they did against, San Jose the night before, but they don't have to worry about it. They're in the playoffs. Right. They're in a completely different situation. They're just hoping to get healthy. They had missing Tyler Seguin. He's supposed to be back, but and Dadonov, so they're missing some pieces, but they just call up Logan Stankoven and he just he steps in with no issue. It's crazy.
They have no problem using the youth to help get them by.
Right. Yeah. What a concept, right?
That honestly is going to be the quote of the year. Is Adam Beckman gets called up. You've got the quote from Bill Guerin about this is his chance
to have popcorn in the.
I think he literally. I'm trying to remember the exact timeline of how that all played out. Because you had the article, you had Bill Guerin saying this is his chance
for Chicago, yeah,
and he didn't get in, and then he got sent down shortly thereafter. You can't.
Which they were lucky to win that Chicago game. If Foligno wasn't motivated, to play his brother. I mean, he was the only one that showed up for that game on a national TV. That was just what a moment.
You can't make it up. No. But what you can do is you can take advantage of being a seller at the deadline, because there are no shortage of players that should be shopped. And there are a few guys that I think could get you a little something at the deadline. It seems more and more like there will be a healthy market for Brandon Duhaime services. And so I would definitely pursue that. I hope we get the opportunity to continue to use the Duhaime intro, but that's just kind of the reality of this situation. And it's all it's the team. If they do anything better to start the season than they did right now, we're not having this conversation. But
no, 100%.
They didn't start off. You can't start off 5-14 and be able to make that ground up easily. So trade deadline's coming on Friday. We're going to talk about the players that should be shopped and the players that likely will have new addresses by the time the trade deadline is done on Friday, as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. For instance, if you listen to our Locked on Wild live episode on Sunday afternoon, you heard my call that Mikael Granlund was a great pick for an anytime goal scorer. And guess what he did? He scored the first goal of the game.
His first power play goal this season, too.
You literally can't make it up. And so if you listened to that prediction and threw $5 down on Mikael Granlund scoring an anytime goal, you've got $150 in bonus bets that you can spread throughout the rest of the season or throughout the rest of this week. You can bet on your favorite NBA teams and players with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. For the everydayers, exciting new segment that will be debuting in addition to our standard Monday episodes. We're teaming up with the Soda Pod. Isha, Jerome, and myself will be kind of co-collaborating on some Sunday content that will be likely in the form of a bonus episode here on Locked on Wild on Mondays going forward. And then I'll be appearing on the Soda Pod as well. So we're going to take our Sunday live shows here on Locked on Wild, and if we get some elite questions, that will probably spur the conversation. So stay tuned for that. Starting next week, more details throughout the rest of the week. Alex, let's talk trade deadline, because that's coming up on Friday, and the Wild are selling. Like, I am not going to hear arguments on buying, because you threw away the opportunity to do so by losing to Nashville and St. Louis, or just the fact that you've lost to almost every legitimate playoff team that you've faced this year. Like, you threw that away at 5-14 to start the season. It's time to sell. And as much as I hate it, Brandon Duhaime is going to be a hot commodity at the deadline. Connor Dewar is probably going to get some offers as well. Potential that with how things have soured, potential that maybe Marc-Andre Fleury has a change of heart, probably not likely. But here's the other problem too, is unless Bill Guerin works some trades that we truly just do not have on the radar, that's going to be about it. Pat Maroon is hurt,
Right.
and at least according to Joe Smith in his write-up after the game, where was it? There was a note in there that Pat Maroon has, I think, resumed skating.
Yeah, lightly. The word was lightly skating.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're another team, are you really gonna want an asset that's coming off of back surgery? I would rather go get a Luke Cunnin, that's on San Jose, that is healthy and can do what Pat Maroon does. And it's kind of funny that what the NHL trade deadline has kind of turned into. You're kind of more looking for depth guys and rugged guys that can hit, and that's playoff hockey is it's usually not high scoring. It's tightly checked. You want guys that are going to stand up for teammates, and you're looking for bottom six type guys, rugged, second, third pairing defensemen, because rarely are superstars available. But I mean, there are going to be some, like Jake Gensel, that are probably going to get moved. Another big name is Noah Hannafin with the Calgary Flames. So many teams want him. But then you have like Sean Walker or Nick Seeler. So it's not not like high scoring defensemen, but they're rugged D that can, take up minutes. We just saw Chris Tanev, get traded from Calgary to Dallas. That was gigantic move for Dallas. So, it's those type of, guys that, aren't going to put up a ton of points, but they're perfect playoff guys. It'll be interesting to see if teams call Bill Guerin on Zach Bogosian. I know they want to re-sign him, but that guy has won a cup and knows what it takes to win in the playoffs too.
And Bogosian has shown that he still has plenty left in the tank, I think.
Yeah. He's only 33. It's like people, just because he looks like a caveman, that they think he's a lot older than that. But 33 is not old.
No, but he just got an opportunity here to play, as opposed to what he was doing in Tampa Bay, which was what Alex Goligoski's doing here, just sitting up in the press box. So you could there will be a team that'll give you something for Bogosian just as like a seventh defenseman. And so it's going to be depending on who you go to, because he has a modified no trade. So there's a list, but Duhaime is probably almost a certainty to be gone at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Dewar is probably very likely as well, because as Joe Smith says, Pat Maroon has started lightly skating, but still appears at least a few weeks out. Marcus Foligno is still rehabbing. Both are advancing with the mindset to play this season. So those guys are going to go to, I don't know, but getting rid of Duhaime and Dewar, two players that you probably should be trying to keep, but that's just the reality of the situation.
No contact with their agents, which is just crazy. They not even a word, so they made their intentions known that they were going to try to, without saying it, try to move them at some point this season. Yeah.
But that will give you a little clarity as to what the bottom six looks like, because it's like a cruise ship that encounters some choppy water and all of the deck chairs get messed up, and you're just trying to kind of sort everything out, and you're like, well, this goes here, no, this goes here, I can't remember.
That's been the major problem with this team too.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the buyouts are still affecting this team, but you still can find guys that can be productive, and the bottom six has done nothing for you. And there's been no accountability for guys like Freddie. Freddie scored against San Jose, but I mean, Freddie's done nothing. I mean, that was his first goal since the end of December, and we're in March. What I mean, and this is a guy that's has a long term. He's not like he's not like
4 more years.
Dewar. I mean, he's gonna be around, and he's gonna be in his just if he's not scoring right now. What's going to happen? It's like it could get real. People are already frustrated. You can't. You're still paying. You're going to buy him out. No, you don't. You want to continue that again? You want to have another buyout like that? No way. And then Marcus Johansson too. I mean. One shot every game, it's just that that's and he's in a top six role, but just nothing from the third and fourth lines. It's been a quiet year for Ryan Hartman. That was a contract that worried me too, because was he just gonna have one year and then just plateau, and it's looking like it. So it's just like,
everybody was rewarded.
Yeah.
Again, we say this over and over.
And they were rushed. They were rushed.
Everybody was rewarded for 2021, 2022, which was an outlier season, except for Filip Gustavsson, who was rewarded for last year, which also looks like an outlier season. Yeah,
it looks like a 1 year wonder. He was just trying to get a contract, and now it's like, I mean, then there was always talks too that he was, kind of out of shape, and that maybe that's wreaking havoc again, but and just is struggling with having a starter type of workload. But I mean, it just seems like he's having difficulties tracking the puck and letting in goals that he has no business letting in. That Duclair one, that made no sense, and the Sturm one too. And I mean, there was talk too after the game that the low shot volume, but hey, you're paid handsomely to stop the puck, and you're letting in goals from the Sharks, and this isn't Nathan McKinnon coming at you. It's Anthony Duclair, Nico Sturm. Just like not guys that are 40 goal scorers. It's just like, come on.
That was the other thing that was frustrating, is that was mentioned multiple times. Is, hey, the Wild only gave up 15 shots. It's like, they scored 3 goals. Like they didn't really generate a ton offensively, but they still scored 3 goals.
Yeah, Granlund's first power play goal, of course, the Wild get that, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, and then Shorty, and and then poor Brock Faber. That was that was a bad turnover, and the most funny thing about that, just looking back at the Duclair goal, it was Granlund kind of gave him a little push to
Yeah.
get his engines started. It was really funny. It just reminded me of like might hockey, you know, when people are learning how to skate, and he gave him a little push. It was funny, and he just buries it against Gus, and he thought it was over from there, but Kirill's, you know, just saved the day. And you know, they didn't want to lose with Zach Halverson doing the Let's Play Hockey call.
Hey, 1-0 with Halvey doing
Get
Let's
him
Play
back.
Hockey. So
yes, with all the Star Wars characters behind Halvey, and Michael Russo had probably the best tweet of the day. It was you know, circling Chewbacca and saying, did Kevin go up there?
It's funny too. I made this remark. I have to do it again for those that missed it. Like, it was a very fitting game that the Wild had Star Wars night, because offensively they looked like stormtroopers for most of the game. Like 64 shot attempts, 32 of them missed the net. Like, that's been a big problem too. So again, if you open the time capsule,
overpassing too. Yeah, that's been a theme of the year too. We can't forget that. No, I don't want to shoot the puck. You know, we'll just keep
here. You
too many
take
passes. Yeah.
I know Matt Boldy had good intentions when he said it after the game, but when Kevin Gorg asked him, like, what is going through your head at the end, like with Kirill on kind of a heater, and he said, pass the puck to Kirill, I'm like,
yeah, it's like, okay, man, come on.
you can score goals too.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is not a one man show. You just got paid $49 million to score goals. You can do it too.
It is March. This
right.
was a March game. Like, go do Matt Boldy things in March. I want to finish today's show by talking about what I'm calling, many will know it as the greater good, but I'm talking about the path forward. Like, what are we watching the rest of the season with playoffs? You know, the Wild are not mathematically out of it, but come on.
Right.
Like, at this point, it's near impossible.
Yeah. The most exciting thing is, you know, hopefully, you know, who knows with visas, but getting Khusnutdinov in the lineup and just seeing how he adapts to the NHL game, because it's completely different than the KHL. And so, you know, it's just, you know, the KHL is kind of regarded as, you know, the second or third best league in the world. And so it's another jump to the NHL, and he's coming, you know, he'll come straight in, you know, there's not going to be any Iowa games. And so, you know, he's an undersized guy, and we'll see, you know, how his, you know, body holds up, but he has the speed too. And so that's another element that, to this team that, is lacking, is his speed. And so that's going to be fun. It would be cool to see him play with Kaprizov maybe for a little bit, and just, you know, get glimpses of what could be in the future. And once they get Yurov over to, you could have an all Russian line, which they've never really had before in their franchise. So yeah, that'd be really cool to see 2/3 of it. But yeah, you just want to see more youth, and maybe they'll finally do that if trades are made.
We'll find out. We'll talk a little more about that to finish today's show as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wilds after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is also brought to you by Game Time. And as the weather continues to get nicer and we get closer to spring and summer, that means summer concert season is rapidly approaching. And if you'd like the opportunity to see your favorite bands or artists, or the Minnesota Twins, who will be getting going here soon, if you'd like to see them at Target Field, you can find all of those tickets at Game Time. And Game Time makes your ticket buying experience as easy as possible. No more do you have to guess as to what you'll be able to see from your seats in whatever venue you're headed to. You can see that now before you purchase the tickets. And remember hidden fees. Game Time said, get out of here. You are no longer a thing, as Game Time will show you what your tickets will cost before you hit the checkout line. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We will be looking a little more in depth at the trade deadline here before Friday, since the Wild don't play again until Thursday. We'll take a look at a few of the players who are going to be available and what could potentially be had for them as we get closer to the deadline. So stay tuned for that. Plus, we'll continue to take a look at the path forward. Alex, a few of the things that I'd like to see from this team down the stretch, as you alluded to, is Marat Khusnutdinov getting into the lineup. Bill Guerin said he's going to play when he gets here, but that they're also going to do right by the lineup. AKA, if there is still a chance at the playoffs, the team is going to fight like crazy to try to get there. Well, thankfully, it looks as though that is a more dwindling proposition as the day goes. A couple more losses, and I don't think we'll have to worry about that by the time Marat is ready to come here. So give him a spot, and this is, I think, the thing that is frustrating most to me is you hear these reports now that Brock Faber's playing through an injury. Not only is he playing, he's still getting 24, 25 minutes a night. Amazing. And so you go from win at all costs to now, if there are guys that are playing through legitimate injuries on this team, get them out of the lineup.
Yeah, it makes no sense to, because you don't want to go into the summer, them having lingering injuries, and then you show up to preseason and you have a Jared Spurgeon type of situation where they get hurt again or re-aggravate something in the preseason in a meaningless game, and then it lingers into the regular season, and then it's, then they're setting them up to overdo it and get hurt, and you end up with Jared Spurgeon not only having back surgery but hip surgery, which it's, when reading that timeline, like he's going to have multiple surgeries back to back in two spots of the body that are the most career type of ending spots in the body for NHL players, hips and backs. It's like, oh boy. So yeah, you especially want to be careful with your Calder contending player like Brock Faber.
I can't believe how willing people are to just move Jared Spurgeon into the, oh yeah, he'll be able to come back without any problems.
That's a back and a hip, and we've seen, I know it's not the same type of thing, but I mean, we've seen guys had to, retire because of hip surgeries, and you just to have back to back and at 34 too, that's tough. And and he's a family guy, and you don't know how they're gonna maybe push for him to say like, hey, we want to hang out with you, Dad, off the ice, and be able to enjoy just regular life too. That's going to be one to monitor for sure.
I just am not comfortable penciling him in at this point. I hope he gets back.
100%. He's the captain of this team, the heartbeat of the team.
But I don't think you can just pencil him in without there being any sort of a backup plan. And so to pivot off of that, another thing forward is continued time. And I'm not talking about just stick him on the third pair with John Merrill and be okay with that. I thought the pairing of Jonas Brodin and Declan Chisholm did some good things when Bogosian was out of the lineup. Let's go back to that, please.
Yeah, I mean Chisholm looked great again, on Sunday night. I've Chizzy as we found out from Freddie Gaudreau. We finally found his nickname from his teammates. Yeah, he just he looks so solid out there. I to get a guy like that for free, that was a win for Bill Guerin and the pro scouts. I know it's not all Bill Guerin and Judd Brackett's more of the amateur scouting. So you rely on your pro scouts who are not only scouting NHL teams, but they're watching the AHL teams. And Declan was more of a just a regular with the Manitoba Moose. I love that. They used to be here. So the Winnipeg, that's their affiliate. And he just was not getting any time with Winnipeg. And Winnipeg, I've mentioned it in a couple of tweets, but they decided to keep Logan Stanley instead of Declan Chisholm. And that's crazy because I'm sure Winnipeg would love to have Chisholm in their lineup, too, just as a puck moving guy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It is funny because we got Kalen Addison back, got a chance to see him.
Fourth line winger.
Just a guy, and
for all the people that were clamoring, I know there's a lot of, it's the same thing with Brandon Duhaime, but, Kalen Addison's been scratched with the San Jose Sharks, and that's a tanking team. You'd think they would give all the time in the world to Kalen Addison. And if he can't even make that lineup, then it's like, oh boy.
That is one that I think the Wild properly cut bait on.
They knew it. They knew it. And, they tried to give him another chance. And I mean, David Quinn's a smart coach with San Jose. He's been a coach everywhere. And, he decided to play Kalen tonight, but, it hasn't been working there either. So
no.
They know.
So, the only other thing that I'll mention as we wrap up is just let's try some things with Marco Rossi down the stretch. Let's try to pair him. I would love to see, and I know they're going to want to give Khusnutdinov a look at center too. Try him at wing. He can play wing. Throw him on a line with Marco Rossi and Matt Zuccarello and see what you get.
Yeah, these are the types of situations that that you can try things because you're not it's not going to affect you getting into the playoffs, of course, and it's really not going to affect the draft right now. They're kind of locked into that,
they're
right around
9 right now.
Yeah, so I mean, they don't really with the way San Jose and Chicago are playing. That's probably gonna be your 1-2 in the draft, and then Buffalo. I don't know what's going on with the Sabres too. That's a team that should be so much better than they are, but they continue to just have weird games down the stretch. You're kind of just stuck in the right around the 9-10 range, and there's nothing wrong with that. With the way this is the year of the defenseman, and it might definitely be worth getting another defenseman to add to this group.
Zeev Buium.
Yeah, he's the youngest player, one of the youngest in college hockey, and he's dominating, which is scary to think. He's just getting his career going early in college hockey.
That's who the Wild are pegged, according to Tankathon, in the latest mock draft.
That would be a win. He was one of the best players in this past World Juniors, so that would be a home run pick for sure.
So see, there are things to look forward to here down the stretch, even with playoffs.
It's experimental time. Let's get it going and see what see what John Hines can cook up.
Michael Keaton and Batman. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Like,
let's do it. Let's see it all. Yeah,
let's mad scientist this thing down the stretch.
Yes. Yeah.
But that will do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. We thank everybody for tuning in. I know you probably saw it on Twitter. Hitting 3 years with the network here this month. It has been just an unbelievable ride. I went back and listened to the first episode I ever did. Oh my.
Hey, shout out. It's amazing too. I was interacting. I love interacting with people on X, Twitter. And I saw that we have someone in Australia that listens to us. So we're just adding spots around the world. Locked On Wild International. Thank you to all of our international listeners and watchers. It's amazing to see this community continue to grow. I just absolutely love it. So it's much appreciated. Seth and I love doing this and love interacting with all of you.
Let's keep it going for more than 3 more.
Yes.
Let's keep it going until the Wild win the Stanley Cup. Like that's my dream, would be to see this show through until the Wild actually hoist a Stanley Cup. And
to see West 7th, it would be absolute chills. I know it's a huge Vikings, town, but this is the state of hockey, and to see it, it would be kind of, just to see everybody's face. that would be, and just the celebrations and the relief. It would mean everything. I hope for that someday soon.
We'll see, but make sure to hit the like button before you head out for the day, and make sure, if you haven't already, to hit subscribe on YouTube or follow on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Locked On Wild's got you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday, plus live streams and postcasts after every Minnesota Wild game. You can find all this as parts of the Locked On Podcast Network.